Okay, so we can see that they've both taken a hit. And we have a melee tie. So we roll the dice. And you take the morale factor of the highest morale units used in the melee. They've got a 6, they've got a 5. But they have a -2 because they are not flank secured infantry meleeed by cavalry. So their morale becomes 3, which does not look good. So let's see what we get. Right, so the Russians end up with 3 plus 6. Plucky chaps is 9. And they end up with 6 plus 4, which is 10. So the French win the melee. Right, and there we see the result with the Russian brigade driven back here in disorder. They retired, they didn't rout, they were merely defeated in melee, and they weren't in such a situation where they would pass through these chaps that they came into contact with, so instead they've pushed them back slightly. And the victorious cavalry here can either they can advance to occupy the position that was occupied by the enemy, or they can make a facing change if they want to. They've already got all this stuff is coming in, well, from here, and here is fire coming in from their flank. Not much they can do about that, or they could face them, but it seems to make more sense for them to face them, so they're going to do that, turn to face them. Okay, then also defending cavalry, which wins a melee, can do the same thing. They can advance to occupy the position held by the enemy, or they can make a free facing change. I think it will just give them a slight little bit of an incremental advantage if they do that. Get them forward, because they won the melee down there, of course, so they'll get a bit closer to the French. Things are looking pretty bleak for them, obviously. Oh, good Lord. French cavalry have been hit hard in this battle, that's for sure. And then, right, to add insult to injury, it is now, we've done all that, so now it's time to see if the division of poor old Milieu, indeed now it's so, sorry, we've finished that, so now we look at exhaustion. Yes. His division is exhausted, as we had said. They've taken 5 hits. So now we roll a die, and if the die is equal to or less than that number, the number of hits his division has taken in this turn, then it has also suffered morale collapse. So it's only a 6 that will prevent that. Right, morale collapse. In the morale collapse, one thing that happens is any routed units there in the division are eliminated. So that means that now his entire division has been eliminated. Right, so what's the big picture? That's the end of the French third turn. It's dusk. So what's the big picture now before we go into the Russian third turn? Well, the French, as we just said, have lost an entire division, all gone. So that was 3 units of cavalry, and they've still got these 2 units of cavalry here, which are guard cavalry. So they're the best you can get. These chaps have taken 1 hit already, as we can see. So they're about to be attacked. It's not going to end well for them, I'm sure. They're going to be eliminated. Where you'd think that they would be charged and fired upon by the Russians, so surely they're going to be eliminated or routed, something like that. And then that will mean that the Russians have got 3 brigades of cavalry in fairly good shape. I mean, we'll see how, careful with the old stick there, Jeff. We'll see how they do in combat with them. They might get a bit of a bruising, I don't know, probably not very much. So the chances are that you're going to have 3 brigades of cavalry plus 4 skirmishing capable bases of Cossacks and Uhlans. And then the French, as I say, they're almost certainly out of here. So the French end up with one Guard Lancer brigade, and they've still got they've got Ney coming on here with his 4 brigades of top-notch infantry. So if they can deploy, I mean, I suppose the French could end up with, not surprisingly, a really long line along here. But of course, not many commanders would want to be in a situation where they are hugely outnumbered in cavalry, because unless you've got totally secure flanks, presumably the cavalry is just going to go waltzing around the end of your flanks and is going to get themselves into a position where they can attack your rear. The other thing the Russians have got, of course, is that they have got 6 battalions of artillery to the French's 4. So yeah, it was. It's been interesting developments. The French attack has done disastrously badly, and. Well, I mean, there we are. Now it's on to the Russian turn. Okay, so here we are on Russian turn 3, which is 5 o'clock, which is dusk, is already in effect. So far, that means that there's no rallying from route, and their command radius is down from 600 yards to 500 yards. So the forces are definitely sticking very closely to their divisional commanders. And you do also have, of course, with the skirmishers, if you've got actual, like light cavalry, here's light cavalry that are not skirmishing, and here are the light cavalry that are skirmishing on the larger sabot bases. And if they are skirmishing, infantry or cavalry, if they're skirmishing, all they have to do is remain, to be in command, they have to be within 600 yards of somebody else who's in command. So and with no subordination. It doesn't matter who they are. There we go. So let's see what has happened. This is at the end of Russian movement, and I've got the combat dice out, ready for the action. And as we can see, it looks a bit. Well, of course, it does tend to be one-sided, I suppose, with the firing, with the shooting, because, of course, you've got the whole notion in Volley and Bayonet that it isn't that both sides will always be firing. The attacking player, that is to say, the phasing player, has a great deal more opportunity to fire in his turn, obviously, than the other player. So it also occurs to me, though, that in doing this, I've actually kind of jumped the gun on one particular aspect. Not over here. We've got artillery firing over there at the French, but over here, what I let me think. No, that's not true. All right. I won't go down that road. Let's carry on. All very mysterious, isn't it? Right. That's right. It's because no. I'll tell you what it is we have to do a morale test first. We have to do morale tests on those chaps here to find out what happens. But the worst that could happen at this point is that one or several of them would become disordered. On the other hand, if one of them was already disordered and then they failed their morale test, as near as I can remember, at that point they would rout. And the point I'm making is you would have no melee. They'd run away and people wouldn't get a chance to shoot at them because they'd be off routing before the melee got started. In other words, it would simulate that they had either scarpered before the enemy charged them, or if they're charging themselves, that they had failed to charge. Anyway, failed to charge home. Right. So what happened in the movement then? Well, seeing as you ask, so we basically, as one might expect, the Russians have tried to sort of move forward to be able to interfere with Ney, or form a defensive line, because the big thing, of course, is to stop the French from being able to get down there and cut off their line of communication on that road there. Okay, so the skirmishing forces in the Bois d'Ajou down here have moved at a rather sprightly pace up this way. They're still in command of Parlin. He's there. They're skirmishing. as we can see. So they just have to be within 600 yards. Everybody's fine there. The artillery has moved forward. It's horse artillery, so it's not only moved forward, but it's also redeployed again. It's unlimbered, as we can see. So just, ready for anything the French might want to throw this way. The Hussars have moved up to stay with their divisional commander and also to sort of fill in the gap here in the centre. We've got a couple of French divisional commanders that are sort of wandering around. The thing is, you don't just move them arbitrarily. In their turn, they will move a maximum of 2,400 yards, presumably back that way. Can they do anything useful? Well, of course, actually, he of course, needs to be with his troops. He doesn't have any troops anymore, but he's still in play. And actually, no, he does. Wait a minute. Oh, I've forgotten to do that, haven't I? Yeah, I was going to say his division has completely disappeared, but it hasn't. It has a unit of artillery, doesn't it? 5th Cavalry Corps. So that these chaps here, who have been commanded by Grouchy, the corps commander, so they are still in play, and I believe because the division suffered exhaustion and then morale collapse, I think he should probably be marked as disordered. I'll check on that now. Well, you live and learn. I was going to mark them as permanently disordered. However, they're not part of his division. They're corps artillery, so they are unaffected by this. Right. Okay, pressing on then. So he does he have any function? I'm not particularly worrying about him, but I'm just sort of, if I talk this through, of course, it helps anyone watching to learn more about the game. Is he of any use at all now? Says all his troops are gone, so he is a commander, so he could technically follow skirmishers around, so to keep them in command, because they don't care who the commander is. It could be any commander can keep them in command, so I suppose if you want to stretch a point, you could do that. Anyway, let's not dwell on that at the moment. Let's get on with the game. Okay, get on with the battle. So we did Parlin's corps over here, and then over here we have Vasilichikov's corps, and there's old Vasilichikov down there, who I did paint, remember? So they are. Get the shadow out of the way. That's my handiwork right there, for what it's worth. Okay. So yes, the cavalry is charged. So we've got the medium cavalry, which are dragoons, I believe, yes, and the hussars. So they have charged the heavies here. So they are heavy. So they are heavier than them. So that will count in the morale test. Okay. Let's see, what have we got? We got the Cossacks that had reformed from skirmishing. They've moved forward to stay tight in with... I think I've messed that up. Yeah, it's funny when you talk this through, you realise what you've messed up. No, they're not messed up, are they? No. They're part of his forces, and they look like they're an awfully long way away from him. But the thing is, you see, here's the magic, that they are within 600 yards of someone who's in command, which is to say, them. So this distance here, you see. So they're all right. Okay, they're in command. The Cossacks that were up here, sort of ran up there to get out of the way, have turned around and come back down here. So now they're in thick with Vasilichikov, because he's their commander. Right, they have to be very close to their commander now that the light is failing. I've put an artillery wheel on that unit there. It's an odd thing to use, I know, but the thing is, they are actually out of command. Hasn't happened very often in this battle so far, but you see their commander is here, who's Bernodosov, and see, I turned him round so I could read his name without having to faff about. You see, there we go. That's the chap. But he was actually there-ish, okay? So they're too far, they're over 400 yards away from him. They were out of command, and if you're out of command, you cannot recover from disorder. So what I did was, I moved him, actually I probably better tidy that up a bit. I moved him specifically so that they would be, there we go, so that they would now be, I moved him so that they would now be within 400 yards of him. So when they begin the next turn, they can count as being in command. They can get rid of their disorder, and they can march off smartly to engage the enemy. Let's see, what else did we have? So these two have gone slap into them. Basically, everyone is trying to gang up on them, as we can see, to eliminate them before anybody else shows up. So the infantry here, which was stationary, they abandoned their stationary status. They move forward, so now they've got 4 dice that they can fire against these chaps here. They will also count. I think that counts in the melee, in the morale test. I'm not sure if it's in the morale test or if it's in the melee tie. They will count as being attacked from the flank because they're being fired at from the flank, well, all over the place. Yeah, things look really grim for them. It looks like they're going to get shot to pieces and meleeed to pieces, as you might expect from that sort of a configuration. There is, of course, the danger that now in the next turn that the French Lancers, of course, which would then be the only cavalry unit the French have left, so you'd think they'd be using them extremely cautiously, they could sort of wander off and say, right, we're going to charge the, I don't know, we'll charge that artillery in the flank, which they could do. Flank attack. They surely would completely eliminate probably the artillery. But that's something that maybe I should have done, isn't it? Yeah. Let's see, I haven't rolled any dice yet, so if I think of something the Russian players should have done, I'm going to jolly well do it. What I'm thinking about, I was just looking at that, and what I'm thinking about, as I say, I haven't rolled any dice yet, so I'm not cheating. If we say it's still the Russian move, it would be to turn their flank so that, I don't know under the rules. Yeah, because if that was an infantry unit there, and we took that unit and turned it, then there's no flank exposed, okay? It's just taken to be a continuous line of soldiers going like that. But that's an artillery piece. So let me check on that, because otherwise that's a flank there. Oh, and that could be really horrible, couldn't it? Yeah, because that's the classic V&B move, is to take a unit like that. Should have thought about this a bit more by the look of it. To take a unit like that, and they charge, they turn. They can do that at the beginning of their charge. They charge straight that way, and then this unit, if it loses all it has to do is lose the melee, okay, would then, if it has to retreat, it would have to go straight through that lot, and it would disorder. Let's see, in the first half of their move, that's 800 paces. No, they have to move 800 paces, and if they move right through you in the first half of that, the first 400 paces, then you are disordered. So that means that would only apply to the artillery, surely. Let's see. So if they're going to move 800 paces, so in the first 400 paces, they move right through you. It would only be the artillery, so they would disorder the artillery. Yes. Let me look that up. Okay, so this is an unusual sort of thing, but as I said, we hadn't got on to the combat yet, so I'm saying it was still a Russian move. And I don't like to have battles or games in which I've made some massive mistake and that completely throws the battle into pieces. So what I've done is this Russian brigade here decided, no, hopefully there's enough being thrown at the heavies there to be able to deal with them. Instead, that Russian brigade took itself from here and marched smartly up to here. Now, it had to sort of march part of the way, then make its free facing change, and then continue on to here, which is why it's ended up in this rather odd-looking situation. But that means that it's now ready next turn to be able to make a free facing change pointing out this way, and then there will be a secure flank there. They will go stationary as well. There'll be a secure flank there. Now, the thing is that the savvy commander knows, you see, here's the big deal. The savvy commander knows that they can't do anything about it. They couldn't even have attacked them if they'd wanted to in their turn, because the next turn, what turn is it now? It's dusk. The next turn is night. And in this scenario, when it's night, visibility goes down to 200 yards. Oh my gosh. So 200 yards, let's take a look at that. So let's take a look at the Lancers there, and we'll just put that down there. I'm not lining it up with them. I'm just trying to get it somewhere where it'll go flat on the table. There we go. There's your 200 yards. Not very far, is it? No. So I suppose it's actually on my table. That's 40 millimeters using my 4/5 scale of Volley and Bayonet rules. Anyway, so how does that work? How on earth can people engage each other? Well, what happens is you can only, as you can imagine, you can only charge somebody that you can see at the beginning of your turn. So what that means is that if you want to engage an enemy, you're going to have to approach the enemy, and then when you get within visibility distance of it, 200 yards, well, you can stop there if you like. I believe you're not allowed to go any closer than 100 yards of the enemy without charging it. So you could go right up to within 100 yards of the enemy, I suppose, but then you have to stop. And then if the enemy is still there in the next turn, then you can charge them because you can see them. But so as we can see, when night is going to fall before the start of the next French turn, so they can't charge them, or they can't charge them or other people further away because they can't see them. So if they want to get stuck in over there, they're going to have to do their facing change and then move up and stop round about here-ish. And then on the next turn, if they still want to, they can charge home. So, yes, it's going to be a very, very different sort of a situation. And in terms of firing, as we can imagine with this artillery back here, for example, they're not going to be able to see the enemy anymore. You can't shoot at people. There's no indirect fire in this game. And we don't have any, radio-controlled fire for effect and all that sort of thing. So therefore, these chaps are going to have to, limber up and move forward to be able to do anything to the enemy. Right. So, 4 fire dice were lost from there because instead these chaps have moved up here. Okay. What else is going on? So, other things going on. That's right. We came up here. I was talking about that. We came up here and I said, oh my gosh, look at them with their flank hanging out on the end there. And sure enough, I did check. That's seeing as I've got it in my head right now, let's do it. Them being next to the artillery doesn't count. They have to be next to a massed infantry unit to be able to get any kind of a secure flank thing going on. So they will be able to get it because they are next to them. Right. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? Right. The other thing we have is, of course, this is just artillery, which is now stationary. Stationary, it gets to roll 2 dice. They're not within close range, nor are they over here, okay? They're going to have an even worse target if they're firing at the artillery, which presumably they're probably the only unit that's within range, I would think, if they even are. Oh, no, they're not within range, are they? Oh, they're not within close range, excuse me. So they could fire at the artillery. I'm not sure if they could fire at the infantry over here. I think they might be able to. They can fire 45 degrees to the side. So I would say, yes, they can certainly fire at that infantry. The infantry is a better target because if you fired artillery, I think generally speaking, there are saving throws involved because there's such a small, thinly spread target, as it were. So it would be nicer to fire at them. They will probably fire at them or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, right. So that was about it. So now we're on to the... I believe we would do, rally, if there was somebody needed to be rallied. You see, command, movement, rally, morale. Morale we're doing now, so we're going to do the morale test. So we have to do morale test of anyone who's in melee or anyone who is in close range of the enemy's weapons. And they're in close range of that unit, not that unit, but that unit there. But they're in melee anyway, so we know they've got to test. So they have to test. These two have to test because they're in melee, obviously. Nobody's in close range over here, so that's it. There was no rallying. I'm sorry, I sort of skipped that. There was no rallying because there's no one routed. We did have a routed unit, but the division morale collapsed, so they got removed. So, oh, and that's right. Sorry, no. Now that we're in dusk and when we're into night as well, in both situations there is no rallying from rout. Okay, so let's do this morale test. Okay, right, as it turns out, they have a morale of 6, And there are no factors that change that in this particular morale test. So actually, I'm going to check on that because there's fire on their flank, haven't there? Hang on. Yeah, the thing is, I mean, obviously you sort of develop a knack for this sort of thing, and you know, one does one's best. But of course, the thing is to try to stand back and look at the situation. Never mind the rules. Try to stand back and look at the situation and sort of say, oh, because as I just said, I said, no, you know, they've got a morale of 6 and nothing's going to affect that. There are no dice roll modifiers. You'd sort of think, well, are they in a sort of perfectly sort of normal, all other things being equal situation? You think, well, gosh, you know, what about all this? Well, there you are. So it causes one to check the rules. That one doesn't make any difference, but that one does because it's close range. So it's close range fire. If they were being meleeed from the flank, that would be a factor. But if they're being fired from behind their front line, fired at in close range, that's what they are, then that is a factor. So that's a -1. So they become a morale of 5 for the purposes of the morale test. So let's do that one now. They rolled 1, so they're fine. If they'd rolled above the number, then they would have become disordered. Okay. These two, on the other hand, are facing heavier cavalry. They're medium, they're light. They both have a morale of 5, so their morale becomes 4. So if they roll a 5 or a 6, they will become disordered. So first we'll do the dragoons. They're fine. And then we'll do the hussars. And they're fine as well. So everybody passed their morale test. So we've got all these dice in place, and they will indeed be used. Right, so now let's start doing some combat. Right, and of course note that the French heavies, they have already taken 1 casualty, as we can see, the little white pom-pom smoke ball down there. Right, so I'm actually going to start with close range artillery, because that hits on a 4, 5, or 6. So we've got, there we go. We got those 2, and we got that 1 from there. Okay. So let's see what that shows up. Okay, we got 1 hit. So, right, there's 1 hit that we're going to be doing on the French cavalry there. Okay, just leave that there for now. And then we've got from here, this is not short range, so it's going to be hitting on 6s. Let's see how that does. Okay, and again, as I said, because they are in melee, I'm adjudicating that they cannot use the saving throws that pulls them back 600 yards each time, because they're in a melee, for heaven's sake. So I'm adjudicating you can only do that if they are only being fired upon. They're being fired and meleeed, so I'm not having it. Right. Right, so far only 1 hit on the French. And now finally we have the hussars, and we have the dragoons with their 8 dice, and they will be hitting on 6s, of course. So let's have a go at that. Well, let's see how the dragoons do first of all. Okay, they've got 1 hit. There we go. And then finally, let's see, that means right now they have 3 hits on them, so I think that probably means that they are indeed destroyed. So we've got 4 more dice here. We'll do that. Okay, here we are. Ooh, well clobbered. Okay, there are 2 hits there. So, yeah, so they got 4 hits. So they've definitely been eliminated. And then, but before that happens, of course, we have to roll and see. Well, that's true, isn't it? Yeah. When you're looking at division morale collapse, do you look at how many casualties were taken, as it were, by the unit, or do you look at how many hits were scored? Because this of course exceeds the number of hits that unit can even take. So I'll have to have a look at the rules on that one. So here, anyway, you have to divide this up. So they have to do 2 against them and 2 against them. So we'll take the 2 from the French heavies, the last hurrah. Let's see what they can do. against the hussars. And they got nothing there. Okay, and then finally against the Russian dragoons, let's see. Now they did get one hit, so they got one hit on the Russian dragoons. Let's sort that out. All right, so that's where we ended up. Let me just do that. There we go. Show there a bit of action up there. So yes, the heavies were wiped out, blasted from all sides, and charged from the front. As we can see down there with the pom-pom, they've a little puff of smoke. They've taken their hit down there. And the division to which the heavies belonged is not exhausted. I think it's one hit away from exhaustion, if memory serves. So that means if there's one hit on those lancers, the division becomes exhausted. The Russians have the option to advance and occupy the space that was occupied by the enemy that was just destroyed. So they've done that. There's advance after combat, as you might call it. They've moved into that area. We can now carry on with the rest of the combat. And so actually what's going to happen is both these battalions of artillery are going to fire. They've decided to try and do a sort of a serious concentration effect. They can both, they've got 45-degree arc of fire, so they can both actually fire upon this unit here, which is, if we go around, yes, these chaps here. So that's Brigade Huguet Chateau, and they're going to be rolling 4 dice, and they're at, there we go, they're at long range. Well, they're not at close range, as it were. So they're hitting on 6s, and let's go ahead. There are no saving throws. It's just infantry standing there with a stiff upper lip, taking it on the chin, that sort of thing. So let's see what happens. We're looking for 6s, and they've got nothing. Look at that, nada. So desultory fire, and that is actually the end of the combat. Right, so after that we check for exhaustion. There isn't any, as we've already established. We're close to it in the case of this division, which is, who is that? That's, where is he? That's him there. Yes, there's old Lefebvre Denuet. So he's going to come back and hang around with them, no doubt. So that's it. The end of the Russian third turn, and now night falls. So basically, hardly anyone can see anyone. And it's going to be all very close quarters stuff. All right.